All right, so get this. Today we're diving into like this whole other world. It's Berzerk time.
Berzerk.
Yeah. We're talking the OG 1980s arcade game.
Yeah.
Not just like some retro throwback, though. We went deep. Vintage magazines. Wikipedia, like Splunky, even found a Billy Styler YouTube rant on it. You know, the one.
Oh, yeah. He brings the heat for sure. And Berzerk deserves it. This game, man, is fascinating. Simple on the surface. Sure, mazes, robots, pew-pew.
You make it sound so exciting.
But under the hood, groundbreaking stuff.
Really? How so?
This was one of the very first games to ever use speech synthesis. Imagine that, back in the day.
Okay, yeah, I can see how in the arcade that would have been wild.
Yeah.
Like you get the bells, the whistles, then suddenly a robot voice.
Intruder alert. I'm getting chills just thinking about it.
Exactly. Berzerk wasn't just a visual game. It created this whole atmosphere. Released in 1980 by Stern Electronics, it was like Pac-Man went rogue and got a gun.
Okay, but more homicidal, I'm guessing.
Way more homicidal. You're this little dude stuck in these mazes. Robots are trying to kill you, and they do not let up. So you're telling me it's a maze shooter where the robots are out for blood. And how exactly are you fighting back? Just like a really determined glare.
Pretty much. You've got your trusty joystick, 8 directions, thankfully, and 1 button to fire. That's it. That's Berzerk.
Simple, right? That's how they get you. Classic, easy to learn, impossible to master.
Oh, absolutely. And the mazes. Randomly generated. Every single game, every room, it's different. No memorizing patterns, just pure survival instinct.
So you're trapped, outgunned, and the layout changes every time. Just great. Anything else trying to kill me? Besides the homicidal robots, I mean.
Oh, yeah, almost forgot. You've also got Evil Otto on your tail. And that's where the game design gets really smart.
Evil Otto. Okay, that does not sound promising. Wait, is that the giant smiley face?
That's the one and only, a giant yellow smiley face that wants you dead. And get this, he's indestructible, just bounces through walls like they're not even there.
Okay, that's just messed up. Giant, indestructible smiley face coming to end you. And you said this was smart design.
It's all about the pressure. Evil Otto forces you to take risks. You can't just camp out and wait, because he will find you. You got to think fast, move faster, and make some risky choices. It's one of the first games to really nail that always-on-the-run feeling. Most games back then, you were running towards something. In Berzerk, you're always running from something.
Okay, so we've got this crazy intense game, and then we add in the whole urban legend thing. It's like prime 80s creepypasta fuel.
Oh, yeah, and there's plenty of fuel there, even if we just stick to the facts. Like, those Berzerk-related deaths, those are fascinating.
Totally.
Yeah.
We talked about Peter Burkowski, right? The 18-year-old who died in 1982. That's the case that always comes up. But what makes his story stand out?
Well, it wasn't just that he died playing, which is tragic enough on its own. It's the whole location thing, too. Friar Tuck's game room in Calumet City, Illinois.
Wait, Friar Tuck's?
Yeah.
As in Robin Hood's Friar Tuck.
The one and only. Apparently, the place had a bit of a reputation.
Okay, hold on. I'm getting some serious Stranger Things vibes now. What was up with this arcade?
So, multiple sources mention that Calumet City had these really unusual water towers. And by unusual, I mean they looked a lot like Evil Otto.
You're kidding, right? Like, seriously.
I'm dead serious. Giant yellow smiley faces. Coincidence? Yeah, probably. But still, super creepy, especially back then when this was all fresh. Can you imagine hearing that and then going back to play Berzerk?
Oh, man, I'd be seeing smiley faces everywhere. Okay, so weird water towers, but anything else that directly linked Friar Tuck's to Berzerk?
There was another incident. A few years after the Burkowski case, there was a stabbing in the same arcade.
Whoa, okay, now that is just unsettling.
Yeah.
2 totally separate tragedies, same place, and one involved this game that everyone's already whispering about. I could see how that would get blown out of proportion.
Right. And some sources even claim there was another Berzerk-related death even before Burkowski, a 19-year-old named Jeffrey Daly in 1981.
Hold up, there might have been another one. What's the story there?
Well, this is where it gets a little fuzzy. There's mention of it in a few places, like this book called Video Game Explosion. But hard evidence, that's hard to come by.
So we're wading into like full-on urban legend territory here.
It's possible. Even our boy Billy Styler, who loves a good spooky story, even he admits that the Daly case might just be a copycat thing. Like, once the Burkowski story got out, people were primed to believe anything.
Which makes sense, right? When something tragic happens, suddenly every little weird thing seems connected. Our brains are hardwired to find patterns, even if they're not really there.
Exactly. It's human nature. But I think it's important to remember, no matter how creepy things get, blaming the game itself. That's not the answer. Berzerk didn't make anyone do anything they didn't want to do.
Right. It's a game, not some kind of evil puppet master.
Yeah.
But still, the human element, right. How we react to these things, the stories we tell. That's what makes it interesting.
Totally. Speaking of interesting, let's shift gears a bit and talk about Berzerk's legacy. Because, spooky stories aside, this game had a huge impact.
Oh, for sure. I mean, it wasn't just some arcade hit, right? This thing got ported to home consoles like the Atari. That must have been wild back in the day.
Oh, absolutely. The Atari 5200 version, that one even had the speech synthesis, which was pretty mind-blowing for a home console back then. Think about how limited the tech was. It took some serious ingenuity to pull that off.
Shows you how ahead of its time Berzerk was. People wanted to play this thing everywhere, not just the arcade.
Exactly. And that hasn't really gone away, you know? There are fan-made versions out there, people keeping the spirit of Berzerk alive all these years later.
It's funny how those simple games sometimes have the longest shelf life. But why do you think that is? What is it about Berzerk? Why did it stick around?
I think part of it is that whole time capsule aspect, you know? It's like a snapshot of that early era of gaming, what designers could do with such limited tech, but obviously limitless imagination.
You can't forget about Evil Otto. He might just be a smiley face, but he's iconic, man. He's like the embodiment of that always-on-the-run feeling that games still go for today.
He's proof that you don't need fancy graphics to make a memorable villain, you know? Just good design and a healthy dose of creepy.
And maybe a dash of real-world spookiness doesn't hurt either. Though I'm sure those water towers were just a coincidence, right?
Let's go with coincidence. But hey, that's the beauty of a deep dive like this, right? We went from joystick mechanics to urban legends, all because of a game about dodging robots in a maze.
Speaking of which, what does this all mean? What's the takeaway from our descent into Berzerk madness?
Yeah.
It really makes you think, like, if a game from the 80s like Berzerk can get this much attention, what about the games we have now?
Oh, totally. We've come a long way from pixelated mazes, right?
No kidding. We're talking VR, these massive online worlds, games that are blurring the lines between what's real and what's not. I mean, it's a whole different ballgame.
It really is. And you know what? I bet there are modern-day Evil Ottos lurking out there. Mechanics, characters, designed to mess with us on a whole other level.
You think so? Like stuff we don't even realize is influencing how we play?
Exactly. Stuff that gets under our skin, you know? Just like Berzerk did back in the day. It's all part of how games have evolved. They're not just about having fun anymore. They tap into something deeper.
For sure. And Berzerk, whether it was intentional or not, it really got people talking. It became this weird mix of tech and urban legend and, well, just plain old human nature.
It's a reminder that even when games are trying to scare us, they're also reflecting something real, right? Our anxieties, our fascination with the unknown, it's all in there.
Yeah, it's like Berzerk accidentally stumbled onto something kind of profound, like a glimpse into how games were going to affect us even back then.
Absolutely. And the fact that we're still talking about it all these years later, well, that says something, doesn't it?
It definitely does.
Yeah.
Well, I think we stirred up enough digital dread for one day. What do you say we log out of the virtual graveyard for now?
I'm with you. Let's save some of those creepy pixels for next time.
Sounds like a plan. So until our next deep dive, keep it retro, but maybe keep an eye out for any giant, suspicious smiley faces lurking around.
You never know. They could be anywhere.
That's right. And on that terrifying note, we'll catch you all next time for another deep dive. See ya.